Okay, so you're gearing up for a corporate investment banker interview. And let's be real, it's kind of like stepping into the financial lion's den.
Yeah, definitely high stakes, for sure. Lots of competition, and everyone expects a lot from you.
Exactly. So you can't just be prepared. You need to be more than prepared. Luckily, we've got all these role catcher resources. We're going to break down this whole role, walk through some interview questions, and give you strategies to not just answer them, but to really impress.
Yeah, and what I think is so interesting is how much the hiring process is changing. It's not just about prepping for questions anymore, it's about how you navigate this world where AI is screening you.
That's so true. And that's where RoleCatcher's AI features can be a game changer. Imagine a tool that can analyze job descriptions and tell you what skills you need to highlight on your resume and in your answers.
Yeah, it's about showing you're the perfect candidate, both to the AI and the human interviewers. RoleCatcher even has this Get Discovered feature where employers can find you based on your skills. It's like you flip the script on the job hunt.
I love that. But before we get ahead of ourselves, what does a corporate investment banker even do? It's more than just Wall Street, right?
Oh, for sure. Think of them like financial architects for businesses, advising companies on major strategic decisions like mergers, acquisitions, raising capital, even navigating financial regulations.
Wow, the career guide even mentions international exposure,
Yeah.
working on huge deals. That's exciting.
It can be really rewarding, but the guide also mentions the downsides. It's fast-paced, demanding, long hours, and your job might not be so stable if the economy takes a downturn. So you need to go in with a realistic view of the good and the bad.
Okay, so now we've got a sense of what we're dealing with. Let's get to the interview itself. RoleCatcher gives us a bunch of sample questions. We're going to tackle some of the big ones. Remember, it's not about the right answer. It's about showing you understand the role, that you have the experience, and that you have the specific skills to be a successful corporate investment banker.
Right. It's about showing them that you not only get the financial side of things, but you can also think strategically, communicate well, and handle the pressure.
Okay, let's start with a classic. Walk me through your resume. Seems straightforward. But what are interviewers really getting at here?
It's more than just like a recitation of your work history. They want to see if you can connect the dots. Between your experiences and the skills they need for this job, it's your chance to tell your career story and show how it led you to this point.
So it's not just listing your accomplishments, it's about framing them to prove you're a good fit for this job.
Exactly. Focus on the experiences that show off your analytical skills, financial knowledge, problem-solving abilities, anything where you worked on teams or with clients, even if you haven't had a finance-focused job. Think about how your past jobs give you skills that would be useful in investment banking.
So like if you led a project, you can talk about managing budgets and deadlines and stakeholders. All those are important in this field. And I bet RoleCatcher's AI can help you refine this whole narrative.
For sure. Their AI analyzes your resume and the job description and tells you where your skills and experience match up best. It can even help you change your language to use the keywords and phrases that employers want to see.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Okay, another common one. Why are you interested in investment banking? And why at our firm specifically?
This is your chance to show some real interest. Go beyond the generic answers. Show them you've done your research, you understand their culture and their values, and you know how you would fit in.
So don't just say, I'm passionate about finance. Talk about a deal they closed that impressed you, or a value they have that you connect with, something to show you know more than just the basics.
Exactly. Look into their recent transactions, their areas of expertise, even their leaders, and connect those to your own interests and goals. Show them you're not just looking for a job, you're looking for the right opportunity where you can make a real difference.
Okay, here's one that always feels tricky. What are your strengths and weaknesses?
Mm-hmm.
It's a classic, but how do you answer it without sounding rehearsed or accidentally saying something that makes them not want to hire you?
Self-awareness and honesty. For strengths, pick qualities that matter for the role, like being analytical, paying attention to details, being a good communicator, and give concrete examples from your work experience.
And for weaknesses, I'm guessing just being real is the best approach. Everyone has things they can work on.
Definitely. Pick a weakness that's not essential for this job and frame it positively. Like you could say, I sometimes get so focused on the details that I lose sight of the big picture, but I'm working on that. But, highlight how you're trying to improve. It shows you're self-aware and committed to growing.
So you turn a negative into a positive by showing you're proactive and always learning. I wonder if RoleCatcher's AI has any insights here too.
Of course, it analyzes your answers and compares them to successful ones, and helps you figure out if your strengths are really relevant to the job. And if you framed your weaknesses in a way that shows growth and self-awareness.
Wow, that's helpful. Okay, let's go for a question that gets to your financial expertise. What are your thoughts on the current market conditions?
Mm.
I feel like you need to strike a balance here. You want to show you know your stuff, but you don't want to make bold predictions that could be wrong.
You're right on the money. It's less about predicting the future and more about proving you're following market trends and analyzing what they might mean.
So don't make big pronouncements. Just highlight the key factors you're paying attention to.
Exactly. Mention specific trends, like interest rate changes, geopolitical events, or things happening in specific industries, and talk about what they might lead to. You could say, I'm really interested in how these rising interest rates are affecting mergers and acquisitions in the tech world.
That shows you're not just reading headlines. You're really thinking about how these things impact the financial world.
And it's okay to admit there are areas where things are uncertain. It shows you know these situations are complex. Like you could say, some analysts think this will happen, but I think you also have to consider these other factors before you jump to conclusions.
That shows a deeper understanding, which is way more impressive than just reciting a textbook definition. All right, here's one that can make even seasoned pros sweat. Tell me about a time you failed. Why do interviewers ask this? How do you answer it without making them worry about hiring you?
It seems counterintuitive, but they're not looking for someone perfect. They're looking for someone who bounces back, someone who learns from their mistakes. They want to know how you handle setbacks, if you take responsibility, and what lessons you learn.
So pick an example where you faced a real challenge. Learn something important, and use those lessons later on.
Exactly. Focus on what you did, how you thought about things, and what you learned. You could say, in this project, I underestimated how complex it was, which led to this outcome, and I learned that I need to assess all the variables and communicate better with everyone involved.
So another negative turned into a positive by showing growth and self-awareness. Does RoleCatcher's AI have anything to say about these behavioral questions?
It's really helpful, actually. It analyzes your answer for keywords that match the competencies in the job description. So it can tell you if your example really shows the skills they want, like problem solving, communication, or leadership.
Wow, that's so useful. It's like having a coach help you pick the best examples to showcase your strengths. Okay, let's get into a question that tests your analytical skills. A company is considering acquiring another company. What factors would you consider in evaluating this potential acquisition? Now we're getting to the nitty-gritty.
This is where you get to show off your understanding of mergers and acquisitions. And that you can think strategically. Don't just list off factors. Walk them through your thought process. Start with the big picture. Why does a company even want to acquire this other company? What are their goals?
Okay, so you're aligning the acquisition with the company's overall strategy. Then you dive into specific factors.
You got it. You talk about the target company's finances, their position in the market, who their competitors are, how the two companies might work together, and any potential risks or roadblocks.
This is where those financial ratios and valuation techniques come into play, right?
For sure. You could mention things like their revenue growth, their profit margins, or their debt levels. You could even talk about different valuation methods, like discounted cash flow or comparing them to similar companies.
And the RoleCatcher Career Guide could be helpful here. It talks about how different experience levels would approach this.
It does. An analyst would focus more on the financial modeling and due diligence, while a more senior banker would think about the bigger picture and how the deal could be structured.
So tailor your answer to your experience level, but show you understand the fundamentals. All right, here's one that can really throw people off. Pitch me a stock. This one feels like a curveball.
Yeah, it is. It's designed to see how you think about investments, how well you communicate, and if you can present a convincing argument. Pick a stock you're actually interested in and have done some research on. It doesn't need to be some complex or obscure company.
So it's about analyzing a company, identifying their strengths, and explaining why it's a good investment.
Exactly. Start with a quick overview of the company and its industry, then highlight the factors that are driving its growth, like strong financials, a competitive edge, or a really great product or service.
And I'm guessing you'd want to use actual data to support your claims.
Absolutely. Talk about revenue growth, profit margins, market share, or any other metrics that support your argument. You could even mention potential risks or challenges just to show you've considered all angles.
This is where reading those industry publications and thought pieces that RoleCatcher talks about comes in handy.
It really does. Being up to date on industry trends and having informed opinions makes your pitch way more convincing. You could say something like, I'm really bullish on this company because they're in a great position to capitalize on this growing demand for.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. Show them you know your stuff, you're analytical, and you can tell a good story. Now let's tackle a question that gets into financial modeling. Walk me through a DCF analysis. This one can be scary if you're not a financial modeling expert.
Yeah, it's definitely a technical question, but remember, they don't expect you to build a model from scratch right there.
Yeah.
Just focus on showing that you understand the concept and highlight the main steps.
So you'd start by explaining what a DCF is for, estimating a company's value by projecting its future cash flows.
Exactly. Then you could talk a little bit about the key inputs, like revenue projections, operating expenses, capital expenditures, and the discount rate.
But you wouldn't have to go into all the detailed calculations.
Not really. You could talk about the importance of making realistic assumptions, sensitivity analysis, and understanding that the model has limitations. Like you could say, while a DCF is a useful tool for valuation, it's important to remember that it's based on assumptions. And those assumptions can really affect the outcome.
That shows you're not just mindlessly plugging in numbers. You're thinking critically about the results and acknowledging that there are limitations. Okay, we've covered a lot, but there's one more big question. Why should we hire you? This is your closing argument, right?
It is. This is your chance to bring it all together, connect your skills, your experience, and your passion to what the firm needs and what the role requires. Don't be generic. Highlight what makes you uniquely qualified.
So you'd reiterate your key strengths and how they match the job description.
Exactly. You could say my strong analytical skills, combined with my experience in this area and my passion for this field, make me a great candidate. I'm confident I can contribute to your team by.
It's all about showing your value and leaving a lasting impression. And I'm sure RoleCatcher's AI can provide feedback on this too.
It can. It analyzes your response.
Yeah.
And looks for keywords and phrases that align with what they're looking for. So it helps you fine-tune your message and make sure you're hitting all the right notes in your closing statement.
Yeah, it's like having this personal branding expert right there with you, helping you craft the perfect elevator pitch for this specific role. You're not just telling them why you want the job. You're showing them why they need you on their team.
Exactly. You're proving you're not just looking for any job. You're looking for this job.
Yeah, that's
and
right.
You're the one for the job. Okay, now what about that classic question? What's your biggest weakness? It feels like a trap.
It can, but it's actually a chance to show you know yourself and that you're willing to grow. The key is to pick a weakness that won't disqualify you and frame it in a positive way. So instead of saying, I'm a terrible public speaker, which might not be great for a job where you talk to clients a lot, you could say something like, I tend to focus too much on the details and sometimes miss the bigger picture, but I'm working on that by.
Exactly. Tell them what you're doing to improve, like taking a course, getting feedback from colleagues, or consciously trying a new approach. It shows you're not just admitting a weakness, you're actively trying to fix it.
And RoleCatcher's AI probably has some tips here too.
You bet. It can analyze your answer and compare it to successful ones.
Yeah.
And tell you if your weakness is appropriate for the role and if you're framing it in a way that shows growth and self-awareness.
That's fantastic. All right, let's switch gears to risk management. How do you approach risk management in the context of investment banking?
Yeah.
This seems crucial in such a high-stakes field.
Oh, it's absolutely essential. They want to know you understand the risks involved in financial transactions and that you have a smart approach. You need to acknowledge that some risk is necessary, but also highlight your ability to identify, assess, and mitigate those risks.
So it's this balance between showing you're not reckless, but you're not afraid to take calculated risks either.
Precisely. A good answer will explain your process. Start with how you identify risks, both big picture risks, like market conditions or regulatory changes, and smaller risks specific to a deal or investment.
So you lay out how you spot those risks, then explain how you evaluate them and figure out how big of a deal they are.
Right. And don't forget to mention the specific tools you use. Do you know about stress testing, scenario analysis? Talking about these specifics makes your answer stronger.
And we can tie in some of the career insights from the RoleCatcher Career Guide here.
For sure. The guide talks a lot about certifications like the CFA or FRM. These show you're committed to professional development and that you know your stuff about risk management.
Okay, now for a question that often throws people off, tell me about a time you had to make a difficult decision with limited information. Why do they ask this, and how do you answer effectively?
They want to see how you think critically, make good decisions under pressure, and deal with uncertainty. This is huge in investment banking because you often have to make quick decisions with incomplete data.
Okay, so what kind of examples should you use?
Pick a situation where you had a real dilemma, had to weigh different factors, and made what you thought was the best decision possible, given the limited information you had. It could be from work, school, or even your personal life.
You set the scene, then walk them through your thought process.
Right. Tell them how you gathered what information you could, what your main considerations were, how you assessed the potential risks and rewards, and how you finally arrived at your decision.
And I'm guessing it's important to explain the outcome of your decision and what you learned from the experience, even if it didn't go perfectly.
Absolutely. Even if the outcome wasn't great, you can still show what you learned and how you applied those lessons to future decisions.
So you're showing them you're able to learn and adapt. Can RoleCatcher's AI offer any insights here too?
Yep, it can analyze your answer and compare it to successful ones for similar roles. This helps you figure out if your example really showcases the skills they're looking for, like problem solving, analytical thinking, and being decisive.
Wow, that's so helpful. Okay, let's move on to a question that often comes up in later stage interviews. Where do you see yourself in 5 years?
Hmm.
It sounds a bit cliche, but what are they really after here?
They want to know about your career goals, your ambition, and how you've thought about your future at their firm. They want to see that you're motivated, have a clear vision, and are really invested in long-term growth.
So it's not about having a perfectly planned 5-year plan. It's about showing you're ambitious and that your goals align with the firm's opportunities.
Exactly. You don't need to have every step figured out, but you should be able to talk about your goals and how you see yourself progressing within the company. You could say, in 5 years, I want to be a top analyst in the tech sector, using my analytical skills and industry knowledge to advise clients on complex transactions.
And you could even mention specific areas of interest within the firm to show you've done your research.
For sure. Talk about a specific team, product, or service that interests you, and how you imagine yourself contributing to it.
And the career stages section in the RoleCatcher Career Guide is helpful for this, right? It shows potential career paths and responsibilities within the firm.
Absolutely. It helps you understand how your career could progress and tailor your answer accordingly. For example, you could say, I'm really interested in the firm's focus on sustainable investing, and I could see myself moving into a role in that area as I gain more experience and expertise.
Okay, now let's talk about that crucial question at the end of the interview. Do you have any questions for me? Why is this so important, and how can you make the most of it?
This is your chance to show them you're genuinely interested, you're curious, and you can have a real conversation. It's also a chance to learn more about the firm, the role, and the team you might be working with.
So don't just ask questions to fill the silence. Ask questions that show you've been paying attention.
Right. Prepare some thoughtful questions ahead of time, but be ready to ask different ones based on the conversation. Like if they mention a recent deal the firm closed, you could ask about their role in it, or their thoughts on what it means for the market.
What are some good examples of questions to ask?
Here are a few to get you started. What are some of the biggest challenges and opportunities facing the firm right now? What are the key qualities you look for in successful corporate investment bankers at your firm? Can you describe the typical career path for someone in this role? What are the firm's values, and how do they play out in the everyday culture? These types of questions show you're thinking beyond the technical stuff, and you really care about the firm's big picture vision and culture.
Those are great. And remember, the RoleCatcher Career Guide and Interview Guide can help you come up with even better questions.
Yes, they give you a lot of information about the industry, career paths, and potential challenges.
The more you know, the better your questions will be.
Okay, let's circle back to the technical side for a minute. Let's say they ask you, how would you value a company? This feels like a big one.
It is, but it's also a great chance to show off. You know about valuation techniques, and you can use them in real-world situations.
Where do you even start with that?
Start by outlining the different methods you know, like discounted cash flow analysis, DCF, comparable company analysis, and precedent transactions analysis.
And then you'd explain the pros and cons of each method, and when each one is the best choice.
Exactly. For example, you can say DCF analysis is usually considered the most accurate method, but it relies a lot on assumptions about future cash flows, which can be hard to predict. Comparable company analysis is a good benchmark, but you need to make sure the companies you're comparing are actually similar. Precedent transactions analysis gives you insights into past deals, but the market might have changed since then.
That shows you understand the subtleties of each method and can critically evaluate when to use them. And don't be afraid to get specific. Mention key metrics you'd consider, like revenue growth, profit margins, debt levels, and industry multiples.
This is where the RoleCatcher Career Guide comes in handy again.
Absolutely. It gives you insight into the financial ratios and valuation techniques that investment bankers use all the time.
Okay, another technical question. Walk me through a leveraged buyout, LBO. This one can be tough if you're not a finance whiz.
It can be, but remember, they're looking for a general understanding, not for you to build a complex financial model. Start by explaining the basics of an LBO, using borrowed money to buy a company, often using the company's assets as collateral for the debt.
And you could explain the typical steps.
Like finding a good target company, getting the financing, structuring the deal, and managing the debt after the acquisition.
Exactly. And you could highlight key considerations, like how leverage affects returns, the importance of due diligence to make sure the target company is financially healthy, and the potential risks and rewards of this type of transaction.
And the RoleCatcher Career Guide can help us here too. Yep.
It explains the different stages of an LBO and what investment bankers do at each stage.
So you can tailor your answer to the specific job you're interviewing for and show you understand how LBOs fit into the bigger picture of investment banking. All right, let's think about a more strategic question. If you were advising a company on whether to go public through an IPO, what factors would you consider? Hilarious. This one needs a big picture perspective.
It does. They want to know that you understand how complex going public is and can weigh the pros and cons.
So start by discussing the company's goals and whether an IPO would even help them achieve those goals.
Right. Then you could talk about key considerations, like their financial performance, how the market is doing, who their competitors are, what regulations they have to deal with, and how going public might affect their operations and culture.
And of course, you'd mention the potential benefits of an IPO, like access to capital, increased visibility,
Yeah.
and more liquidity. Of course.
Yeah.
But you also need to mention the potential downsides, like more scrutiny from the public, more regulations, and the fact that existing shareholders would lose some control.
Reading those industry publications and thought pieces that RoleCatcher talks about would be helpful here.
Definitely. Staying up to date on the IPO market, recent trends, and regulatory changes can give you a more insightful perspective.
Okay, let's try a question that often catches people off guard. What's your favorite book and why? Why would they ask this in a finance interview?
It might seem random, but they're trying to learn about you as a person, your interests, how you think. They want to see if you're well-rounded, curious, and able to explain your thoughts clearly.
So it's not about picking a finance book. It's about picking a book that really means something to you and that you can talk about with passion.
Exactly. It could be fiction, a biography, a history book, whatever. Just choose a book that's had an impact on you and that you can talk about enthusiastically.
And you should try to connect the book's themes or lessons to your own values or goals.
Yeah, for example, if you choose a book about a successful entrepreneur, you could talk about how it inspired you to pursue a business career, or how you admire the main character's resilience and determination.
I bet RoleCatcher's AI can give us feedback on this too.
It can. It analyzes your answer and looks for keywords and phrases that match the qualities they're looking for. So if the job description emphasizes teamwork and your book is about collaboration, RoleCatcher can help you make that connection clear in your answer.
That's awesome. Okay, let's end with a question about ethics. Tell me about a time you faced an ethical dilemma at work. This feels like a high-stakes question, especially in investment banking.
It is. They're trying to figure out your moral compass and if you can make good decisions when things are tough.
So what kind of example should you use?
Pick a situation where you had a real ethical challenge. You had to consider different values, and you made a decision you thought was right. It doesn't have to be some big dramatic situation.
Okay, you set the scene. Then explain how you thought it through.
Right. Tell them how you figured out what the ethical issues were, what your options were, and what the consequences of each option might be.
And you need to explain why you made the decision you did.
Yeah.
And how it fits with your own ethical principles or the company's code of conduct.
Yes, and even if things didn't turn out perfectly, or if people disagreed with your choice, you can still show what you learned and how you've used those lessons in your ethical decision-making since then.
Again, showing you're capable of learning and growing. I wonder if RoleCatcher's AI has any insights here too.
Of course, it analyzes your response and compares it to successful ones to see if your example really shows the ethical considerations and decision-making skills they want. It can also help you improve your language, so your message is clear and impactful.
Amazing. Okay, we've talked a lot about interview questions, but before we finish this part, let's talk about nonverbal communication. It's not just what you say, it's how you present yourself.
So true. Things like eye contact, posture, Hand gestures, even what you wear, can really affect how people see you.
What are the key things to remember?
First, dress professionally. Investment banking is formal, so it's better to be a little too conservative than not conservative enough.
And what about during the interview?
Make eye contact. Sit up straight. Don't fidget. Use hand gestures only when you need to emphasize something.
And your facial expressions are important too.
Yes, smile genuinely. And try to show enthusiasm and engagement with your expressions.
Does RoleCatcher's AI have any advice here?
It does. They have a video analysis tool that can assess your nonverbal communication during mock interviews. It can tell you about your eye contact, facial expressions, and body language.
That's incredible. It's like having a virtual coach to help you refine your presentation skills.
Right.
And make sure you're coming across as confident and professional. Okay, we've covered a lot in this section, but there's one more important thing about interview preparation we haven't talked about yet.
Oh, you're right. We need to talk about researching the firm and showing them you're really interested in what they do.
Right. It's not just about showing up ready to answer questions. It's about proving you've done your homework and you're genuinely interested in their culture, values, and strategic direction.
You need to show them you're not just looking for any job. You're looking for this job at this firm because you believe in what they do and you're excited to help them succeed.
What are the key things to research?
Start with their website. Read about their history, their leadership, their areas of expertise, and any recent deals they've done.
And those industry publications and thought pieces are useful here too.
Absolutely. They can give you insights into what the firm's been up to, what they think about market trends, and how they're seen as thought leaders in the industry.
And how do you connect your research to your own interests and goals?
That's important. Find specific teams, products, or services that you're interested in, and talk about how you see yourself contributing to them.
Like you could say, I'm really interested in your firm's focus on sustainable investing. I'd love to learn more about how your team is approaching this.
Perfect. And don't hesitate to ask thoughtful questions about their culture, their values, and their vision for the future.
This is where those questions you prepare beforehand come in handy.
Exactly. Having a few good questions ready to go shows you've been paying attention and you really want to learn more.
And remember, the RoleCatcher Career Guide and Interview Guide can help you come up with even more insightful questions.
They're great resources for learning about the industry, career paths, and potential challenges.
Okay, we've covered researching the firm. But before we move on to our final section, let's talk about networking.
Great idea. Networking can be so helpful when you're looking for a job, especially in a competitive field like investment banking.
So what are some good networking strategies for aspiring corporate investment bankers?
Start with your existing network: classmates, alumni, professors, friends, family, anyone who might know people in the industry.
And going to industry events and conferences can be helpful too.
Absolutely. Those events are great opportunities to meet people from different firms, learn about different career paths, and get insights into the industry.
And what about informational interviews?
Those are super valuable. Reach out to people who are working in roles that you're interested in and ask if you can chat with them for a bit to learn more about their experiences and insights.
And this is where that Get Discovered feature in RoleCatcher can really make a difference.
You got it. By creating a good profile on RoleCatcher, highlighting your skills and experience, you're making yourself visible to employers who are actively looking for candidates like you.
So you're proactively putting yourself out there instead of just waiting for opportunities to come to you. Okay, that makes sense. Use all the resources you can to expand your network and make real connections in the industry. Now let's move on to our final section, where we'll talk about some key things to keep in mind as you navigate the interview process and make a lasting impression.
Sounds good. Let's get into those final tips, the ones that can make all the difference.
All right, so we've talked about technical skills, behavioral questions, research, networking. But what about the less tangible qualities that interviewers are looking for? What really makes someone stand out in a corporate investment banking interview?
It's a mix of things: intellectual curiosity, passion, drive, resilience, and a genuine interest in the field.
So it's not just about knowing the right answers. It's about showing that you're excited about the work.
Yeah.
And that you're eager to learn and grow.
Exactly. They want to see that you're not just looking for any job, you're looking for a career where you can make a real difference and be part of something bigger than yourself.
And being able to talk about your long-term goals and how they align with the firm's mission can make a big impact.
Definitely. Showing them that you've thought about your career path and how you see yourself growing with the company proves that you're invested in their success. and want to contribute for the long haul.
And RoleCatcher's Get Discovered feature can help with that.
For sure. By highlighting your career goals and the kind of role you're looking for, you're basically putting yourself on the radar of employers who are looking for someone just like you.
It's like you're taking charge of your career and making sure you end up in the right place. Okay, let's talk about another important factor: cultural fit. How can candidates figure out if they'd be a good fit for a specific firm?
You need to research the firm's culture, values, and work environment to see if they match your own.
Going to networking events and doing informational interviews can help with that.
Definitely. Talking to people who work at the firm can give you valuable insights into the day-to-day culture, how the teams work together, and the work-life balance.
And those behavioral questions we talked about earlier can also give you some clues.
Yeah, pay attention to how they describe the firm's culture, their values, and what they look for in their employees.
So if they talk about collaboration, teamwork, and a supportive environment, and those things are important to you, that's a good sign.
Exactly. And don't be afraid to ask about the firm's culture and values during your interview.
Like you can say, "I'm really impressed by your commitment to diversity and inclusion. Can you tell me more about what you do to create a welcoming and inclusive environment?"
That shows you've done your research, and you care about more than just the technical aspects of the job.
Okay, now let's talk about something a lot of candidates worry about: nerves. How can you deal with those pre-interview jitters and present your best self?
It's totally normal to be nervous. The key is to channel that nervous energy into positive energy.
So don't try to ignore it. Use it to your advantage.
Right. Prepare thoroughly. Practice your answers. And imagine yourself succeeding in the interview.
And taking deep breaths, staying hydrated, and getting enough sleep can help too.
Yeah, taking care of yourself, both physically and mentally, can make a big difference in your confidence and performance.
And RoleCatcher's AI-powered mock interview tool can be really helpful here.
Absolutely. Practicing with RoleCatcher's AI can help you get comfortable answering common questions, refine your answers, and get feedback on your delivery and nonverbal communication. It's like having your own personal interview coach.
That's awesome. Okay, let's talk about crafting a good story about your career and how it's led you to this point.
You got it. It's not just about listing your accomplishments. It's about creating a narrative that shows off your skills, your motivations, and your passion for the field.
So don't just repeat your resume. Highlight key experiences that show you're right for this specific role.
Right. Like if you're interviewing for a job in mergers and acquisitions, you'd want to focus on experiences that show your analytical skills, your financial modeling experience, and your ability to work under pressure.
And connecting your experiences to the firm's specific needs and values can make your story even better.
For sure. You could say, "I'm really interested in your firm's focus on innovation in healthcare, and my experience developing financial models for healthcare startups fits perfectly with that."
And RoleCatcher's AI can help here too.
It can analyze your career story and compare it to successful ones. This helps you see where your story best matches the job description and the firm's values. It can also help you refine your language, so your message is clear, concise, and impactful.
It's like having a personal branding expert help you tell your story in the best way possible. Okay, now let's talk about something that can be really tricky: curveball questions.
Yes. Interviewers love to throw in unexpected questions to see how you think on your feet, how you handle pressure, and how you approach problems.
So what are some common curveball questions? And how can you prepare for them?
Here are a few examples. Tell me about a time you failed. What's your biggest weakness? Why should we hire you over someone with more experience? If you could have dinner with any historical figure, who would it be and why? Teach me something I don't know.
Wow, those are tough. How can you even prepare for that?
The key is to practice thinking quickly and explaining your thoughts clearly. Think about some potential curveball questions and practice answering them out loud, even if it feels a little awkward.
And I bet RoleCatcher's AI-powered mock interview tool is helpful for this.
It is. It can simulate those unexpected questions so you can practice your responses. And it gives you feedback on your delivery, your content, and your overall approach to those tricky questions.
That's great. Okay, let's wrap up this section with one final piece of advice. Be yourself.
So important. Prepare thoroughly. Present yourself professionally. But don't forget to let your personality shine through.
Find that balance between being polished and authentic.
Exactly. They want to see that you're not just a bunch of skills and experiences. You're a real person with passions, interests, and a unique perspective.
And I think showing genuine enthusiasm and passion for the field can really make a difference.
It can. When you're truly excited about what you do, it shows. And it makes a big impression.
RoleCatcher's AI can even help with this.
Yep. It can analyze your responses and give you feedback on your tone, your enthusiasm, and your overall engagement.
Amazing. It's like having a coach help you be your best self to the interview. Okay, we've covered a lot in this deep dive into corporate investment banking interviews. But before we finish, I want to make one final point.
Okay, what's that?
The interview process is a two-way street. It's not just them evaluating you, you're also evaluating them.
You're right. It's about finding the right fit. A firm where your skills and values match their culture and mission.
So go in prepared, ask good questions, and pay attention to how you feel during the interview.
Trust your gut. And don't be afraid to walk away if it doesn't feel right.
Okay, that wraps up our deep dive into corporate investment banking interviews. I hope this has been helpful. And good luck to everyone who's going for this exciting career.
And remember, RoleCatcher is a great resource to help you navigate this process with confidence and success.
That's so important. It's a chance for both of you to see if it's a good fit, not just professionally, but culturally too. But beyond the interview tips, what's one piece of advice you'd give to someone who really wants to get into investment banking?
I'd say develop a real passion for finance and business. Read industry publications, follow market trends, even go to industry events if you can. That passion will show in your interviews and make you a more interesting candidate.
It's like that saying, do what you love and you'll never work a day in your life. But in this case, it's do what you love and you'll ace those interviews. And that's where RoleCatcher is so helpful throughout this whole journey. It's not just about interview prep. It's about developing the skills and knowledge that make you a top candidate.
Right. Their career guide and interview guide have so much information about the industry, career paths, challenges, even salary expectations. It's like having a roadmap and a mentor all in one.
And their AI tools can help you with your resume and cover letter. Practice your answers, even get feedback on your nonverbal communication. It's like having a team of experts supporting you.
And don't forget about the Get Discovered feature. It completely changes how the job hunt works. Instead of just applying and hoping for the best, you're putting yourself out there for employers who are actively searching for someone with your skills.
You're taking control of your career. So as we wrap up this deep dive, what does all of this mean for you, the listener, as you head into your interview?
It means you're not just going in prepared, you're going in empowered. You really understand the role, the industry, and you know how to showcase your strengths. You have RoleCatcher as your partner, giving you the tools and knowledge you need to succeed.
And even though the world of finance can be intimidating, especially at the corporate investment banker level, you've got this with the right preparation, the right mindset, and the right tools. You can totally ace this interview and land your dream job.
Here's one last thought. As you prepare, don't just focus on the technical skills. Work on those soft skills too. Communication, teamwork, problem solving, leadership. Those are the qualities that will really set you apart and make you a valuable asset to any firm.
That's a great point. Well, that wraps up our deep dive into corporate investment banker interviews. Good luck, everyone. And remember, you have the power to shape your own career.